If you're a regular listener to The Edge, you're likely familiar with our somewhat beyond-the-box approach. You might even call it slightly over the edge at times. The idea of The Edge is to challenge our assumptions about, well, almost everything. Today, we've selected some of our favorites, features from past episodes of The Edge that challenge the way we think about life and business. So here we go. FCC Edge, the best of Mind Matters. After a long, hard season, who doesn't look forward to some well-deserved time off? It's really supposed to be a rhetorical question, but the answer may actually surprise you. Almost 60% of North Americans who get vacation time don't use it all. Even those who do take their vacations don't disconnect. A Harvard University School study found that 98% of those who take a vacation check in with work while they're away. What's worse is that the thought of taking a vacation actually creates stress for many people. Joanne Cantor is the author of Conquer Cyber Overload. She says unplugging can cause so much anxiety that we literally can't relax and enjoy a day at the beach. Why? Well, here are 3 of the top reasons. See if you can connect with some of these. First, emails and text messages from work are addictive. 2, we worry about the work that will pile up while we're away. And thirdly, a small percentage of employees feel that they might be fired if they take time off. Now, we don't need scientific research to tell us that taking a break is important. Your body and your mind have limits. It's really no different than the captain of a hockey team. He thinks he's so valuable to the team that he never comes off the ice. You will be more effective if you get off the ice often. Take frequent breaks to mentally and physically recharge. The question, though, how do we do it? If you're really nervous about getting away from the business, then try the hockey player approach. Take short but frequent breaks, even if it starts with just an afternoon here or there. The single best way I've heard to accomplish this is to be deliberate about developing someone in your business that you trust. When you go away, only give that person the information of how you can be reached. If something truly urgent comes up that absolutely no one but you can manage, then that one person can contact you. Once you've tried this approach over time, you'll become more comfortable with being away for longer periods of time. Now, let's say you're getting away, but you still have stress because during your absence, something really important is going to be happening in the business. I've had this happen before. It's rare, but it does happen. So in cases like this, again, establish someone you trust to be your single point of contact. 2, make a plan and communicate it well in advance with the family and the person you've chosen as a contact. Work the plan. And to do that, the plan has to be simple and it has to have rigid boundaries, which means you got to stick to it. For example, let's say you're going to be away a week. The plan is Monday and Thursday morning between 6:30 and 7 a.m., you will check and respond to messages. Once 7 a.m. arrives, you turn the computer and smartphones off until Thursday morning at 6:30. And for the next few days, your mind is at ease and you are 100% present with your family because you have a plan assuring everything's going to be fine. Now, this approach, while, not a full disconnect from work, is much better than randomly checking your smartphone all day long for messages wondering if everything is okay. There is nothing worse than being present with your family at the beach while your mind is somewhere else thinking about what could be going wrong at work. Research shows that a stress-free vacation can lead to lower stress for a full 5 weeks after the vacation is over. In that way, a vacation, when done right, is a gift to yourself that keeps on giving.
Efficiency isn't simply about getting work done faster so you can do more work. According to Brian Tracy, author of several books on time management, the purpose of getting more done in less time is to enable you to spend more face time with the people you care about and doing the things that give you the greatest amount of joy in life.
I admit some days my life reminds me of Fred Flintstone. My feet are jammed firmly against the ground, trying to get the car slowed down. The speed and intensity of life and business can be overwhelming. Author William Dean Howells writes, People are born, married, live, and die in the midst of an uproar so frantic that you would think they'd go mad of it. Well, sounds like someone who understands the stress and pace of life. It's worth noting, however, that Howells wrote that over 100 years ago. Gandhi put it this way: there is more to life than increasing its speed. We know in business that speed and efficiency can be crucial components of a successful business. But how do we keep the pace and the resulting stress of business from overwhelming our personal lives? Now, recently I was browsing one of the online bookstores and came across a series of books called the 1-Minute Bedtime Stories. These are some of the classic stories mashed into 60-second format. When you read the blog comments on the bottom of the page, it really hits you. People commenting that these books are lifesavers since we don't have time to read a full bedtime story. Really? Comments like this, well, they paint a picture, an interesting picture of what life has become for many of us. In the 1800s, a number of physicians began using the phrase time sickness, sometimes referred to as the tick-tock syndrome. The pace of life and business is getting so out of hand that many of us have become obsessed with the idea that you have to pedal faster and faster just to keep up. And the trouble is, the body has limits. It can't be fooled if we try to beat it into submission and ask more of it than it can deliver in 24 hours. Well, the good news is that stress is not inevitable, even in today's competitive world. In this edition of The Edge, we've rounded up 5 principles for stifling stress, specifically on the farm. First, ground your decisions in procedure. Now, this one comes from Scott Belsky at 99percent.com. Typically, when we're in a hurry or under stress, we make decisions fast with little information, a recipe for bad choices. Belsky suggests the best way to avoid this trigger response is to have a procedure in place, one that forces you to walk through the steps and get the information you need prior to taking the action. Having a clear procedure for solving certain problems prevents brash decisions and ill-conceived solutions. Now, many producers do this already. When marketing crops, livestock, or even managing their mortgage. When it comes to interest rates, for example, some growers will create interest rate targets ahead of time. When rates hit that predetermined level, some of their debt is automatically locked in. It's a predefined process that limits emotional, knee-jerk decision-making at the moment. Next, stay open. Stress makes us defensive, which means that we tend to isolate ourselves at times when it's most important to seek input from others. At these times, force yourself to ask more questions than usual of yourself and your team. Also, insist that you get a gut check from someone else on the team before taking action. Number 3, control your intake of news. Author Jeffrey James at Inc.com says, the news media, like every other form of entertainment, makes money by producing strong emotions in its audience. Outside business news, those emotions are almost exclusively negative, things like anger, fear, anxiety, dread, and frustration. So limit your news intake, and you automatically limit your stress. Next, disconnect from what you can't control. Obviously, agriculture is full of factors that you simply can't control: the weather, the markets, world events, consumer trends, and the reactions and emotions of other people. Utilize various risk management strategies to manage such uncertainties. Once you've made your choices, it creates stress to continue to dwell on these factors. Change what you can change and have the courage to shrug off what you can't. Finally, avoid stressed people. Now, this is a big one, folks. Just like a cold, you can catch stress from other people. Obviously, you can't avoid stressed people all the time, but it's important to understand that some negative people create stress simply out of habit. It becomes learned behavior. The bottom line is we become like the people we spend time with. This matters because a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him or her. This is actually a law. It's called the law of the inner circle, something we'll talk about more in a later episode. So, here's how to stifle stress in your life and on the farm. 1, ground your decisions in procedure ahead of time. 2. Stay open to the influence of your team. 3. Control your intake of news. 4. Disconnect from what you can't control. And 5. Avoid stressed people. The good news is, when you control stress, the calmness you demonstrate is also contagious to those around you, creating a better environment for better decisions.
You've heard the phrase work smarter, not harder? According to time management specialist Dr. Donald Wetmore, it's not happening. Even with all the technological advancements we enjoy, in the last 20 years, working time has increased by 15% and leisure time has decreased by 33%.
I'll bet everyone listening has had a parent or a grandparent that repeatedly proclaimed something like this: "If you don't have anything positive to say, then don't say anything at all." Well, history is full of people who became famous for embracing positive thinking. Take Churchill, for example. "The pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." Many of you know the name Darcy Lang. A few years ago, she was a speaker at the FCC forums. Those of you who have seen her presentation will know that she presents herself as a very positive person. As host of the event, I had the chance to speak with her before and after her presentations. What struck me was that she was the real deal. She didn't act and speak one way on stage and then turn into something different off stage. Her message was consistent and simple. Focus the magnifying glass of your life on the 90% of the good stuff, not the 10% that's not so good. Having dug a little deeper on this idea of thinking positively, I've discovered that researchers are now able to demonstrate that negative thoughts are literally bad for your health. In fact, the way you think has as much impact on your health as the food you eat and the exercise you get or don't get. So let's check this out one step at a time. First, a 12-year study at the University of Tennessee exposed two groups of people to 5 minutes of news each day. One group received 5 minutes of bad news, and the other group 5 minutes of good news. By the end of the study period, the group that listened to the bad news each day believed the world was a negative place, believed that what they heard would happen to them, they were less likely to help others, and felt like life was out of control. Simply by listening to negative news events and dwelling on that information, their entire concept of reality was adversely affected. Now, we take these negative thoughts and see what effects they have on our health. Let's start with the first result, cynicism, believing that the world is a negative place. Researchers have shown that people who are always suspicious and mistrustful of others, it creates stress in their lives. People who showed the greatest level of cynicism were 25% more likely to develop diabetes and heart disease. Secondly, those in the negative thinking group that believed that what they heard would happen to them. People who always are talking doom and gloom have what's called a type D personality, which typically means that they have fewer friends, they bottle up emotions, and the result is depression. Research has shown that depression raises stress levels, which increases deadly plaque buildup in the arteries. The third result of dwelling on negative thoughts is that feeling that your life is out of control. Ask yourself, are you constantly late for appointments or disorganized? A study involving more than 9,000 people shows that organized people live at least 3 years longer than those whose lives tend to be out of control. Experts say it's because people who take control of their lives tend to feel less stressed. There's that word again, stress. The bottom line is most negative thoughts tend to be linked to higher stress. Prolonged stress raises your blood pressure and weakens your immune system. Negative thinking raises your risk of dying from everything from a heart attack to a common cold. So maybe Gandhi was right. A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. So, here's to your health. Embrace a little possibility thinking. Because while it's true you are what you eat, it is equally true you are what you think. Part of this list of impacts of negative thoughts on your health comes from the folks at livescience.com.
Get the Edge on the go. Download episodes of FCC Edge on iTunes or at fcc.ca/edge.
Have you ever struggled to muster up the gusto to get something done? Maybe you've concluded that you really dislike your job, or maybe once you had a passion for it, but now, not so much. Some people call it mojo. I have a cartoon on my office wall of a guy screaming in frustration, "I've lost my mojo." Call it passion or drive or whatever it is. When you have it, you know you found the magic in what you do. When you've lost it, the inspiration is missing, a spark that provides a creative boost. So, let's dig into some solutions to maintaining your mojo. First, move forward. According to Marshall Goldsmith, the author of Mojo, How to Get It, How to Keep It, and How to Get It Back If You Lose It, a good first step is to move forward. One of the causes of lost mojo can be failure, of course. Bumps in the road cause us to slow down or to stop and be discouraged. Now, in business, this means we stop asking questions. We stop trying new things. Several authors I have read over the years suggest that moving forward or just doing something is the single greatest act in life. The truth is, we often don't know what to do next. Thinking and pondering are important, but all too often, that's all we do. If you try something and you fail, you're still doing something, still moving forward. So celebrate your failed attempts. Call them failing forward. Next, if you want to maintain your mojo, then avoid negative people. People who view everything negatively can be a huge drain to your energy. A cynical person typically dwells on what's not working, what's not possible. Please excuse the cliche, but we have all heard someone say, "I'll believe it when I see it." A person with mojo views challenges this way: "I'll see it when I believe it." Now, if you can't steer clear of negative people completely, try to avoid getting into arguments with them. If it's about work, stick to the facts. If it's social interaction, stick to light topics. Another way to jumpstart your mojo: don't wait for perfection. There's an old military adage that goes this way: no plan survives contact with the enemy. In other words, plan, but wrestling with it until it's perfect is a waste of time. FCC Forum speaker General Rick Hillier says this: no plan is perfect, so execute early. When you move on a course of action before it seems perfect, you are immediately closer to success. Moving forward with step 1 often gives you an idea of what step 2 is going to be. And our final tip today on gaining mojo is try stretching past your limits on a daily basis. FCC Forum speaker and Olympic swimmer Mark Tewksbury came within 6/100ths of a second of the world record in the backstroke in the early 1990s. He then admitted, "I showed up every day at the pool and just did the work the same way, assuming I was being my best just by being there." Interesting, isn't it? It wasn't until Tewksbury began to stretch his assumptions on a daily basis that he would eventually win gold in the 100-meter backstroke in the '92 Olympics in Barcelona. So, take the time to maintain your mojo every day for your business, for your family, for yourself. It'll be a win for you and for those you lead. Hey, thanks as always for allowing us to be a part of your online experience. Come back to fcc.ca often, as there are lots of changes coming and new media being added all the time. If you prefer to have the media come to you, then consider the Express. FCC Express is a weekly email newsletter that will provide links to new videos, podcasts, national ag news. It's an email-based system, so everything is delivered directly into your inbox. The info you need to give it a try can be found at fcc.ca/express.